Good morning, Britain. Could the case of the missing estate agent Susie Lamplugh finally be solved as the search for her remains continues in the garden of a house connected with the prime suspect in her disappearance?
Crackdown on violence in our hospitals. The government announces a zero-tolerance approach to protect NHS staff at risk of attacks and ensure swift punishment for offenders. But will it be enough? We're asking the Health Secretary live after 7 o'clock.
Do people hate vegans? After the editor of Waitrose Food magazine caused outrage by joking about killing them, why do they have such a bad reputation? One vegan fights back this morning.
And from soldier to soap star, we meet the former Royal Marine who lost his leg fighting in Afghanistan, who's now joined the cast of Coronation Street.
Good morning from Chesington, where it is a frightfully cold start to the day. Temperatures have dipped as low as -6 degrees. And if you are heading out trick-or-treating later, you want to hold on to your capes. It's said to be a windy one in the west, but another clear, cold one for many as well. So wrap up warm.
Wednesday, 31st of October 2018, live from ITV Studios in London. This is Good Morning Britain with Susanna Reid and Adil Ray.
Good morning. It's just gone 6 o'clock. Welcome to the show.
Susanna, Adil, Charlotte and Cruella.
Guess I'm the only one that got the memo. Happy Halloween, everybody.
If she doesn't scare
What is that at the end of your little... What is it?
Is it supposed to... Well, otherwise it looks like a warm candle, so we rolled a little something and put it in there, but it's all perfectly legitimate within the realms of decency and the law. Just let me stress that before
I'm not sure that's
CID
appropriate
descends.
for the children watching. Thank you.
There you go. It was
Now
actually
you've
a
got-
sweet...
You've
Anyway.
got the wand back.
It's not the children we should be worried about, it's your puppies, Susanna.
Have you got any puppies this morning?
I left Clemmy at home. I thought it would be too much of a fright night
She'd
for
be
her.
terrified.
She would indeed. I am dressed as Cruella de Vil because I like it, but also because we have a Dalmatian announcement coming along a little bit. Yes, I'm expecting. I've been carrying a little bit of weight, all 101 of them. Cheeky little Dalmatian announcement later in the show. And of course, it is Halloween.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is this how
As
you
you may
go
have
out
noticed.
trick-or-treating?
Just as well, really.
I'm wondering if I can set a world record for keeping this costume on the longest, because it's since 3:30 this morning, and whether or not I can get to my local tonight. But my local tends to be a little bit fluid. I think you know what I'm saying. So I might get a few unwanted advances.
How do you look in a bikini? Just seeing you in this get-up this morning.
Could be tomorrow's look.
The reason I ask is because the national governing body of Swimming England, has apologised and removed an article from its website which suggested how women could look slimmer in the pool. It advised women with jiggly bellies should avoid wearing bikinis, as if we need to be told. Those with boyish bodies should try push-up cups to enhance their cleavage. Pear shapes, which have often been the plague of women, should mix eye-catching bikini tops with dark bottoms. It's the kind of advice you might get in a women's magazine.
I was going to say, like a teen magazine or something. This is Swim England.
Yeah.
This is like the people who are sort of responsible for promoting swimming across England. Is
And
that
trying
right?
to encourage more people to go out
Encourage-
swimming.
A bit off-putting, isn't it?
It's
Hide
the
your
national
jiggly
governing
belly.
body. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I think, haven't they said now that it was old advice or something they've taken?
Old
out? I
advice?
don't
When?
know.
From the 1960s?
It's been there for a while.
Women know your
Seems like
place.
it's justification.
If you're going swimming...
But I say, get your jiggly belly out, go and swim, who cares?
Exactly.
Good for you, Charlotte.
Yeah.
Get your jiggly belly out. Now, do you think he's sexy in this? This is Rod Stewart, who fell earlier this month on a huge lump of concrete, but has now got a fantastic mobility scooter and a fetching boot to wheel himself around Los Angeles.
That is
there he
one
is.
hell of a scooter. What isn't it?
That looks like quite a lot of fun,
It's
actually.
very LA-style scooter, isn't it?
So we hope he gets better and recovers.
Yeah, good luck, Rod.
But if she can't see anything with these prosthetics on, I think
What are the prosthetics,
you've
by
got
the
the
way?
cheekbones.
Oh, I see.
Oh, they're not your natural cheekbones.
No, they're not. But I forgive you because obviously we haven't worked together nearly long enough.
Did it take you a long time to get done this morning? What is the announcement about the Dalmatians?
You'll find out later on. It's
Can
called
you
a
tell us
tease. Wait, do you want me to de-rig already? Is it slightly unsettling?
It's a little bit unnerving.
You accused Lara of coming in and drag the other, the other
Lara
day.
was in here this morning. It'd be like looking in a mirror. Are you kidding?
How often do you actually enjoy dressing up like this?
Well, I don't get much of a choice because I've got a mortgage to pay. You know that. So when they tell me I have to do it. Well, I'm just glad it's not latex because that was the memo that went round last week.
Latex what?
Was I allergic to it or not?
That was the only details you got.
That was the text I got from the showbiz team.
You've got to worry. Talking about unsettling costumes, have you seen this child's
this is
costume?
brilliant.
Because this
yeah.
has literally gone viral. So it's been voted the best Halloween costume of 2018. It's the mother of a 6-year-old, Maya, who made this costume. Take a look at this. So it is a headless child. And there are those people who are saying, this costume is amazing, it's the best thing ever. It has been criticised, though, for being just a little bit too freaky.
It is a bit freaky.
Yes.
I mean, it's going to, if she's going to a children's party, that's probably going to scare a lot of
The
other
living...
children.
Oh, no, they put the sweets in the
top.
That's brilliant. It's practical too.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is absolute genius.
So if you're looking for a last-minute costume to rustle up, apparently it did take her 2 days to make it. That's the only thing.
Yeah, 2
she
days
made
and
it
10 million
herself.
views on YouTube, though. That's got to be worth 48 hours.
Monetize that,
I
can't
threw
you?
this together in an hour.
That's worth some free stuff.
Isn't
There we
it?
go. That is a little bit freaky.
Wow.
And Laura dressed up this morning as well.
As our pumpkin.
Can we have a little look at Laura at Chessington? Let's have a look. Well done, Laura. She got the memo. Dressed as a
Looking
pumpkin.
good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
I've got something even better for later.
Oh, wow. That's
How
a
can it
promise.
get better than that? Brilliant stuff. Good.
Just wait and see.
Just coming up to 7 minutes past 6. So let's bring you up to date with our main news this morning. The brother of the missing estate agent, Susie Lamplugh, says he hopes her remains will be found today to end the 32-year mystery and give the family some closure.
Police are searching the garden of a house in Sutton Coldfield, which once belonged to the mother of a man named as the prime suspect in the case. Our chief correspondent, Richard Gaisford, is there. Richard, after more than 3 decades of police work, Susie's family hope the case is about to be solved.
Yes, that could happen today, Adil. We're expecting those specialist search teams to come back here today just after sunrise. It was clear that they couldn't dig through the night. This is a suburban area. What's also clear is that they must be acting on new information. The big question, though, is where that information has come from and who has given it to them. As you say, the main suspect in the disappearance of Susie Lamplug's mother used to live in this house many years ago. John Cannan, this main suspect, has always denied any involvement with her disappearance. And in today's Sun newspaper, it's being reported that actually the police ignored the significance of him in the early stages of this investigation and that many blunders had taken part in this case that have actually meant that they haven't discovered Susie Lamplug's body before. Certainly this is 100 miles away from where she was last seen in Fulham, London. Many years have passed, as you say. Today the family feel that they could start to get some sort of closure. Beneath the concrete being cut here may lie the answer to a grim mystery. And Susie Lamplug's family want to give her a proper burial.
You don't want to get your hopes up too much. We've had so many of these ups and downs that it just, we need to have, it would be great to have some sort of closure.
The searches and appeals over 3 decades since the estate agent disappeared in West London in July 1986 have been extensive, but she was never found and was declared dead, presumed murdered, in 1994. This the man witnesses reported she was arguing with the last time she was seen, thought to be John Cannan, who became the case's prime suspect.
I just wonder what the new intelligence or information is that's led them to do that. I've no doubt they have received some new information.
Cannan's mother's house was first searched in 2003. Attention's now focused on what might be under the concrete of an old garage behind it. However chilling, it might provide the answers that Susie's loved ones have wanted for 32 years. Richard Gaisford, Good Morning Britain.
That's our top story. In other news this morning, 2 teenagers have been arrested after a 3-year-old boy was hit by a stolen van during a police chase in Lee in Greater Manchester. Leo Durrington is in a critical condition at the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. Juliet Dunlop is at the scene. Morning to you, Juliet. Now, police have described the collision as a horrendous incident.
Charlotte, according to police, Leo Durrington was simply out walking with his mum and his sister. They were near the junction to this pub on Tuesday morning when a stolen van simply mounted the pavement and hit Leo. Now, somehow his mum and his sister escaped unharmed, but little Leo was thrown across the pub car park. Now, police had been chasing the van at the time when this happened. Officers, of course, stopped immediately and gave Leo emergency first aid at the scene, but the van drove off. It was later found abandoned. Now, following a widespread public appeal for information last night, police announced that they'd made 2 arrests. A 15-year-old and a 16-year-old have been arrested in connection with the incident. Leo Durrington, meanwhile, well, he remains in a critical condition in hospital with his family at his bedside. Police have also referred this case to the independent police watchdog.
Thanks, Juliet. That's Juliet Dunlop there. Hundreds of protesters greeted President Trump as he visited Pittsburgh to pay tribute to the victims of the mass shooting at a synagogue. 11 people died in the attack. As Jessica Savage reports, it came as mourners attended the first funerals.
Huge crowds turned out to protest, many feeling the president shouldn't have come to this grieving community. Accompanied by First Lady Melania, Mr. Trump laid flowers and pebbles to remember the 11 people murdered at the weekend as they worshipped. The president has come under fire, seen as consistently slow to denounce white nationalists and neo-Nazis, many feeling his overt nationalism is encouraging a dangerous fringe. The president's visit coincided with the funerals of 3 of those who lost their lives at the weekend's mass shooting. But as this community mourns together, many here feel the president's rhetoric only serves to tear apart. Jessica Savage, Good Morning Britain.
Vauxhall is recalling 47,000 more Zafira B cars over fears they could catch fire. The manufacturer says all models with electronic climate control are at risk and should be fixed. They were excluded from a previous recall 3 years ago. Registered owners will be contacted by the company over the next week. The Health Secretary says the NHS is adopting a zero-tolerance approach to attacks against staff after figures showed 1 in 6 experienced violence from patients and their families in the last year. Holly Hudson has more details.
From being spat at, kicked and punched to even being held hostage, nurse Shelley Pearce has faced violence dozens of times.
We must share our stories. We must not be afraid to speak up. Why should I be put more at risk just because I adorn a uniform?
Today, for the first time, the government is introducing measures to try and stamp out such assaults, including better training for staff to defuse violent situations and support for victims. It comes as growing numbers of NHS workers are now being attacked. Over 56,000 were physically assaulted last year, a rise of almost 10% on the year before.
Alcohol, drugs, and a sort of rising tide of violent crime have meant that they've been sometimes in the front line, even though they're trying to protect people and save people's lives. There's a madness, a scandal here.
The government says the new strategy will protect NHS workers and patients and punish offenders more quickly. But there's worries doctors and nurses will remain at risk until the more widespread problem of staff shortages and funding cuts is solved. Holly Hudson, Good Morning Britain.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have taken part in a Maori welcoming ceremony on the final day of their visit to New Zealand. They also named 2 young Kiwi chicks and carried out their final public walkabout. Nick Dixon is in Rotorua for us this morning. Hello there, Nick. Dozens of engagements over 16 days in 4 countries. They've done well, haven't they? And how was their final stop?
They sure have, Charlotte. Morning to you. I know you haven't been counting, but I have. 76 royal engagements over the last few weeks, and arguably they saved one of the best for last, I would say. They got such a rousing welcome here in Rotorua, and probably the best welcome of the entire tour. It was a traditional Maori welcoming ceremony this morning for them. Both the Duke and Duchess, both given a specially made kurawai feather cloak to wear, and the Prince also having a really good stab at making a speech in Maori as well, and he was was cheered pretty much and applauded after every single sentence. So he really made a good impression at this welcoming ceremony. After lunch, I went along with them to the National Kiwi Breeding Centre. They were very lucky, actually. Just a few minutes before we arrived, one of the chicks had hatched, so they got a really nice behind-the-scenes tour. And then it was on to their final walkabout. Another huge crowd as well, probably bigger than yesterday in Auckland, actually. At times, it's felt like being on a sort of One Direction tour with these two, because there's so many young people cheering and screaming and desperate for hugs and kisses with them. And today was no different, that's for sure. They got a really warm reception. And then one final engagement just a couple of hours ago, a little wander hand in hand through one of the forests here, looking at some century-old redwood trees. So the last engagement, they're going back to Auckland tonight and then off home to London. Lots of fond memories and hundreds, Charlotte, of hugs. So many hugs on this tour.
Nick, thanks for that. Oh, I'm not surprised. They've kind of packed it in that 16 days, haven't they?
It's like they've been there ages. Time to come home now.
Also, I think all credit to her because she is in the early, very tiring
really
stages,
tiring, isn't it?
of
She was
pregnancy.
wanging wellies the other day.
And she's kept on going, hasn't she? Despite the fact that at one point she was going to take a rest, but she's ploughed on through it.
I really admire her for her energy. I mean, you know, I just remember in that first couple of months where you just wanted to have a lie down all the time. You didn't necessarily want to be around lots and lots of new people.
And
a lot of standing up.
It gets tougher and tougher, does it?
Well,
is there a moment where you kind of settle?
The early time is the tough time, I think, when it's all literally growing, using up lots of energy. Yeah, it's all new. You're very tired. You then go through a bit where you're kind of like, this is okay.
Yeah.
And then the build-up comes and you think, uh-oh.
Yeah, that's the bit where you really need to take a break.
6:16, those are this morning's top stories. Now let's get the news, travel and weather where you are.
See you in a moment.
Hello, I'm Leisha McNally. As you've been hearing on the national news, 2 teenagers have been arrested after a 3-year-old boy was left fighting for his life during a hit-and-run crash in Lee. Police say Leo Darrington is still critically ill in hospital. He was hit by a stolen van which was being chased by police on Wigan Road. It was later found abandoned. 2 boys, a 15 and 16-year-old, are being questioned. Greater Manchester Police have referred the incident to the Independent Office for Police Conduct in line with their force policy. The mother of a teenager who disappeared from her home in Lancashire has written a book about her experiences. Charlene Downs was 14 when she was last seen in Blackpool. Now her mother Karen has written a memoir to mark the 15th anniversary of her disappearance. A debate is being held in Parliament later on fracking, chaired by the Field MP Mark Menzies. It comes after work was temporarily suspended at the Preston New Road site in Lancashire on Monday because of earth tremors. The debate is due to take place this evening in Westminster Hall. On to football, and Blackpool are hoping they'll be giant killers tonight when they meet Arsenal in the League Cup. Manager Terry McPhillip says he's revitalised the club since taking over and is up for the challenge. And some results now. Crewe were in action against Mansfield Town last night in League 2. They lost 3-0. Time for the weather now. Here's Kerry.
Brightening up your morning with Good Morning Britain local weather, sponsored by Soak.com.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Not quite as cold today, but unfortunately a little bit more unsettled. So we get a mixture of patchy cloud, sunny spells and a few showery outbreaks, tending to develop a little bit more, certainly over Cumbria, maybe Lancashire and the Isle of Man for later on. But for Halloween revellers later, south and east is drier and clearer. Have a good day if you can.
Kerry, thank you. And we'd love to see your Halloween pictures, so do get in touch. But now I'll return you to Adele and Susanna in London. Bye for now.
Let's have a look at the front pages of today's newspapers. Now, The Sun is reporting that the police officer who led the first inquiry into the murder of Susie Lamplugh in 1986 refused to view the man who is now considered the prime suspect as her possible killer. The paper says an official review has revealed blunders in the former detective's work on that case.
The Times features a picture of tourists wading through floodwater in Venice. The city is suffering its worst flooding in 10 years after being battered by storms. Some of those images are really quite scary, actually, some of them.
And the Mirror reporting on teachers' furious reaction to the budget. They've criticised the Chancellor for telling them they could buy little extras with a £400 million funding boost. It says unions call the offer insulting and they're accusing the government of starving them of long-term funds.
Well, joining us now, Daily Mail's Andrew Pearce is back from his travels.
Good of him.
Around the EU, while he still can. Freedom of movement,
Thought I'd
Andrew.
wave farewell to it. Bye-bye. Good riddance. Thank you very much.
Soon your face will be on wanted posters at the border.
I said,
They will
ta-ra,
not let
suckers,
you
we're off. I bet you wish you could follow us with their massive unemployment in Spain.
The Daily Mirror's Kevin Maguire is here as well, of course.
It's true that on your way back, we won't be able to come through the EU passport gates. Well, we'd have to queue up like everyone else.
Others. Wasn't a queue at the airport yesterday for EU or non-EU.
So it doesn't matter.
No.
It's all going to be fine.
Fine on the night. You know it is.
Economic downturn, but I suppose if you keep using your private jet...
Yeah.
It was sleazy jet, I'm afraid.
Let's talk about a couple of things. Firstly, Susie Lamplugh.
Extraordinary.
32 years ago, she went missing after going to visit... She was an estate agent.
Yep.
She went and had an appointment in her diary with a Mr. Kipper.
Yeah.
Never came back.
Now, I remember it. I've got the grey hair. I used to have black hair back then, and it was so shocking because it showed you the vulnerability of workers, particularly women workers.
Yeah.
And very few checks were made at the time. You just ring up an estate agent, you want to see a house, they just take you around. Now they will be asking for details to check who you are. But it's been a complete mystery. Both her parents are dead now. Her mother died not knowing what had happened.
But even now, though, female estate agents often show men around houses. So, because there was some talk at the time that they should be accompanied by another woman or a man, and it's not happening.
Yeah, she was obviously in an extremely vulnerable position.
Yep.
The Sun has an extraordinary sort of list of the blunders that were made in the original investigation, and the suggestion that the man, John Cannon, who's now considered the prime suspect in the case by police, that one of the original investigating officers thought that was a story by Susie Lampley's mother.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very odd sort of dynamic there.
Yeah, if it is as it's told in the Sun today, that's a huge error being made by that officer. And of course, Susie Lampley's mother was a fantastic campaigner, not only to find out what had happened to her daughter, and of course there was hopes for a long time that she'd run off, just disappeared, or had been kidnapped and might be freed, but also campaigning for other women too, in the safety of other women.
Yeah.
Through the
They set
Susie
up the
Lamplugh
Susie
Trust.
Lamplugh Trust,
Yeah, but that, if it's said, it's so often in these cases, and police officers, one, under pressure, and two, make mistakes.
Yeah.
It would be
dreadful.
so reassuring for the brother and other relatives if they do find her, because that will give them some closure. Because how do you rest, really, knowing that your sister's out there somewhere?
And presumably they must have some pretty strong evidence or information
You'd hope
this
so.
is quite a lot of expense and
Huge.
trouble to go through.
It's
this.
huge.
So you'd think.
And also you sort of think, God, isn't it obvious? You know, his
Under the
mother's...
patio.
Under the patio, yeah, exactly.
Well, we'll have more on that later, because we're speaking to a former investigator who wasn't on this particular case, but has worked on lots of murder cases. Let's get some reaction to the budget then. Well, the IFS, the Institute of Fiscal Studies, have said that it's inevitable, despite everything else, that taxes are going to have to go up anyway at some point. So, you know, we've got lots of good stuff to look forward to there. Right?
Well, I mean, they always say that the budgets are never quite as good 2 days afterwards as the day that they're published. And that's
funny that, isn't
it's
it?
always been the same, because people go through the detail, they go through what they call the Red Book, if we are going to get rid of austerity, they are going to have to raise some more money.
Daily Mirror, Kevin, this morning, particularly going in on, as we did yesterday with Philip Hammond, this 400 million little extras for education. I mean, a drop in the ocean when it comes to the sort of money that head teachers are crying out for.
Yeah, I thought he was sneering and patronising when spending per pupil has fallen really dramatically. Schools are under the squeeze.
Yeah. Struggling to recruit teachers.
For little extras like, as we were discussing, teachers, classroom assistants, books, pens, toilet rolls.
Fundamentals, the rest of us would say.
And he's had now the bombardment from teachers and people in education who know what's happening. I thought the budget felt bad yesterday. It's even worse today, as it has unravelled, because austerity hasn't been ended. That was untrue. And then you look at the tax cuts. The richest tenth are going to get 14 times as much as the poorest tenth. 14 times. Where is the fairness in that? Well, there is no fairness in that.
But the fact is, this budget was always going to be about the NHS, giving more money for universal credit, taking people at the lower end of the income scale out of tax altogether. But even so, I'm surprised he didn't find more for schools, because I know for a fact in the last general election the Tories were hurt badly. With school mums.
Well, rather like a pupil wriggling when they're trying to explain why they haven't handed in their homework, Philip Hammond said yesterday, actually, this isn't about the big spend, because that's coming up when I hand my homework in the spending review in the spring. So be grateful for the small amount of money that I've given you now, because there's potentially a big amount of money coming.
God dear, look at that. We'll have some more, sir. It's like Oliver, this, isn't it? But
and bearing in mind, all the while, they promised they were going to be balancing the books by the
Yeah,
you know,
well, that's
out the window.
So that's completely
because there's an election 3 years away or 4 years away, so they're already taking the brakes off of spending.
Let's judge him by his own tests. And it was the golden goal of this government to balance the books. They said they'd balance the books by 2015. Never happened. Now they won't be balanced way into the next decade. If you look at wages,
you can't have it both ways, Maguire. You either want more money for the NHS or universal credit, or you just think we can just keep on spending. You can't have it both ways.
Fail your own test. You fail your own test.
The budget is all about.
Don't squirm.
The budget. I'm not squirming at all. I think it was a very clever budget, actually. A very clever budget, because he's finally said to those middle-income earners, who earn £43,000, £46,000, that threshold's going to be raised to £50,000.
Yeah.
That's not a vast amount of money, £46,000, if you're bringing up 4 kids and you live in the South East. It's not a vast amount of money.
Any economics teacher would use that little extra to fail Philip Hammond on a GCSE.
Well, let's see what happens with the polls. And isn't it interesting?
I think he was quite surprised, actually, about the reaction to that. He looked like maybe it was a misstep.
It was clumsy language, I think. But what's interesting is he's moaning about the budget, but his shadow chancellor, John McDonnell, endorsed all those tax cuts in interviews.
I think McDonnell's made a big mistake.
Labour are backing Tory tax cuts.
And if previous Labour leaders had said, well, we'll back these tax cuts because they're so unfair, I think John McDonnell would have rebelled and would have voted against them. But I think the reason Hammond just didn't get it is he's got a tin ear.
Yeah.
He really doesn't have any empathy or understanding or sympathy with people.
Is that because he's worth about £8 million?
Well, it could be because
MP
a multi-millionaire property developer. He could be, I mean, you know, he's never had to worry.
I'm not being facetious. I mean, it's a valid point, I think, sometimes. He's very wealthy MP.
Well, he was a very successful businessman before he became an MP. And what's wrong with that? That's good. We want successful businessmen in the Commons.
But you also need a chancellor who understands the problems that people who are struggling are experiencing.
Schools was a huge problem for the Tories at the last election. I think it could be again.
Let's talk about the gift we tried to give the Chancellor yesterday, because we did wonder whether, you know, we were asking all the Tories on the programme whether they want to be Prime Minister. So because yesterday, just before the budget, he released a photograph of himself with an Emma Bridgewater mug, which says Chancellor on it. I think we've got a picture of that. Oh, we haven't, says the director. We wondered whether he might want an upgrade to a Prime Minister mug. Let's have a look at this. Yesterday, you showed a picture of yourself with a specially commissioned mug, which has got your name and the Chancellor on it. Would you like a mug which says Prime Minister Philip Hammond?
No, thank you very much. I'm very happy. Oh, here's the mug.
There it is.
Thank you very much. No, I'm very happy with the job I've got. Thank you very much.
Hands it straight back. It was like it was kryptonite.
I know.
Oh, I don't want that.
Yeah, that's very clever. Well done.
Apparently, the Mail today, Andrew, your favourite today, says that there's a curse of the mug.
I think there is. When they've been photographed with this mug, a few months later, they're out the cabinet.
It's not a great selling point, is it? Boris Johnson, former Foreign Secretary. There we go. There's him with his mug.
History.
Not long after that.
Yeah.
God, doesn't he look old and tired?
There's a mug with a mug.
Whoa.
The same happened to Amber Rudd.
Yeah, the Home Secretary.
Former Home Secretary.
Yeah.
There we go. She's with pictured with her mug.
Not good.
And Justine Greening, the former International Development Secretary as well. So
now we know why Philip Hammond wouldn't touch that mug.
You haven't got a spare one.
Good stuff. Well, nice to see you this morning. Yesterday, your seat was ably filled by Ian Dale, who's one of your colleagues on LBC.
Yeah.
Of course. I have to say, he did a very good job. We had good chemistry.
Good.
Such good chemistry. The Express reports this morning. News that Good Morning Britain Susanna Reid, 47, thanks for mentioning the age, is back on the dating circuit. Move one fan to observe her on-screen chemistry with fellow broadcaster and political commentator Ian Dale and suggest a possible romance.
Do you know, I think the only problem with that would be Ian's husband might object.
He married his long-term partner, John Simmons, back in 2015.
I know him very well.
I did say, as well as we get on, I don't think I'm Ian's type.
I don't think there's going to be any spark there.
Also, I'd just like to point out to viewers, I can get on with guests without actually dating them.
Without there being a romantic involvement.
Do you know that?
Well, you've managed with us too.
It's been difficult, I know. It's been a very
good to see you both this morning. Thanks very much
Thank
indeed.
you, guys. Now, Laura's in Chessington with a look at today's weather.
Good morning. Yes, I am. And I have a special friend with me this morning. Now here, this is John Bone Jovi. See what I did there? And I thought, as it's Halloween, maybe we should tell a skeleton joke. Oh my God! I don't know what's happening. Oh God! Okay.
Love your home, whatever the weather. With Good Morning Britain National Weather, sponsored by Checkertrade.com.
Checkertrade, checkertrade.com.
My heart is racing. Oh, my heart's racing. Good morning. Well, that certainly warmed me up. Happy Halloween to you. Now, if you are heading out trick-or-treating tonight, will it be a trick or will it be a treat? Well, I can tell you it is a mixed fortunes at the moment. It will be devilishly dry through eastern areas, but there'll be some revolting rain out towards the west, so make sure you grab those capes. You will need them. Now, as we head through the day today, though, we are set to see mixed fortunes. It's a west-east split and pretty much a reverse of what we had yesterday. Eastern areas, the clearest, coldest conditions, temperatures as low as -6 degrees. Out towards the west, cloud and rain has moved in here, and here temperatures slowly been climbing, but still a cold start to the day. And as we head through the day, more wet and windy weather continues out towards western areas, the best of any sunshine out towards the east. And temperatures today a little bit higher than yesterday, perhaps 12 or 13 degrees. But there is some rain in the near continent that makes its way northwards as we head through this evening and overnight tonight, heading towards eastern areas of England by tomorrow. So another reverse of fortunes tomorrow. It's eastern areas that are cloudy with outbreaks of rain. Some of that rain will be heavy out towards the west. A drier, brighter, sunnier day ahead. And temperatures again will be struggling, particularly under that cloud and rain. And then as we head towards the end of the week, we have got an ex-hurricane, Hurricane Oscar, out in the Atlantic. We've been monitoring its track, and it looks as though by the end of Friday it'd make its way towards more northern areas of the UK. So a clear, cold, frosty start on Friday morning, and then gradually turning wetter and windier as the day progresses. On into the weekend and into next week, it stays prettier and settled, so climbing temperatures but turning wetter and windier to boot. For the weather where you are in detail, go to itv.com/weather.
Now, the murder of 25-year-old Susie Lamplugh 32 years ago is one of the most notorious cold cases in recent criminal history.
Police are preparing to excavate the garden of a home in Sutton Coldfield, which once belonged to the mother of the prime suspect, John Cannon. It's a desperate bid to solve the mystery of 32 years. Here's Charlotte with a timeline of what's happened so far.
Yeah, so looking at the details, the estate agent Susie Lamplugh disappeared in July 1986 after meeting a mysterious client known only as Mr. Kipper in West London. Despite widespread searches, she was never found, and in 1994, Susie was declared dead, presumed murdered. In 2002, John Cannon, in jail for another murder at the time, was named the prime suspect. In 2003, Cannon's mother's house was searched for the first time, but failed to find enough evidence to continue. Today, the search is thought to be focused on what might be beneath the concrete floor of an old garage behind the house.
Joining us now from Suffolk is the former senior investigating officer in the Metropolitan Police, Colin Sutton, who worked on over 30 successful murder investigations. Probably important to point out, didn't work on this particular investigation, but he's with us now. Searches are beginning in Sutton Coldfield. How significant is that today, do you think?
Well, it's the significance is that doing something, an operation of this magnitude and using the resources that it takes is not something that's taken lightly. So I think we can, be pretty happy that the police feel that there's a good chance of success if they conduct this search.
So will they be acting on some new bit of information, a new bit of evidence? Because like you said, there's a lot of money and expenses got into this. And what's your sort of summation of that? Where might have got some of that information from at this stage? So many years have passed since.
Yeah, they have. The idea that there may be something to be found at this house has been kind of kicking around and in whispers for some time. I would imagine that there has been some more sort of hard information from another source, maybe from within the criminal fraternity or something like that. Because it's, as somebody in charge of something like this, it's not a decision you take lightly. There are tens of thousands of pounds worth of resources are going to be expended in doing this search, absolutely correctly, and it's absolutely worth doing if Susie's body is to be found. But it's not something you do just on a whim.
Susie Lamplugh went missing 32 years ago. You were in the police force, the Metropolitan Police Force, at the time she went missing, although you weren't directly involved in that case. I mean, you must remember the case, we all do, how shocking it was, how a woman could just disappear without trace, it seems, and police could just be left completely baffled by what had happened to her, with the only really sinister clue that she had written in her schedule, meeting with Mr. Kipper, 12:45. I mean, do you talk to us about what impact that had, the sort of investigation that went on at the time, and why you think it just led to a dead end at that point?
I mean, we were in a very different world in 1986, and yes, I was in the police then, and I do remember it, and the way in which we investigated in those times, there was very little, if any, CCTV. Mobile phones were in their infancy, and the art and the science of looking at their data trails and their geographical locations hadn't been started. This was really a murder investigation or a missing person investigation in a completely different age. We are very, very different these days, and it wouldn't be possible in the middle of Fulham or in the middle of London now for somebody to disappear in this way. And no trace to be seen of her or the assailant. It was different back in 1986. It doesn't seem that long ago, but it's a whole world of difference.
Yeah, the Sun newspaper this morning has an extremely critical report on the early investigation, saying that Deputy Superintendent Hackett was convinced that press reports linking the prime suspect, the man that the police have now named as the prime suspect, but that Deputy Superintendent Hackett was convinced that those press reports linking him to Susie came from the Lamplugh family themselves. And as a result, didn't necessarily follow up in the way that you might have expected. And that this, excavation, which now everybody's thinking, well, why wouldn't you do this excavation earlier, didn't happen back then. What do you make of those reports today?
Well, I think that the reports are based upon a review that was conducted, an internal review that was conducted by the Met Police. So I think we have to take that at face value. And I have to say, it's unusual for an internal review to be so strong in condemning what went before it. So I think we have to take that as face value. Look, when you're leading these investigations, you're trying to solve them. And you try to keep a cool head and to be objective about the things that are being thrown at you. But I understand completely that, emotional aspects of what people suggest, of what people close to the victim suggest, sometimes you have to try to put those to one side and look clearly at what the situation is and what you need to do. you can get that wrong. You know, people do get things wrong. And it may well be, the review seems to have found that they think that the original investigating officer took things into account that perhaps he shouldn't have done in being objective in looking at his lines of inquiry and where it should go. Yeah. And, you know, the fact that we're now looking at this man being named as the prime suspect and his mother's former house excavations going on there, it kind of seems self-evident that he should have been treated as much more of a suspect and much more of a strong suspect way back at the time when it was happening.
Now, members of his family will desperately want some justice now. Unfortunately, Susie's parents are no longer with us. But how long will this now take? The search has started now. How long will this go on for? At what point would the police investigation stop? I think, well, we've searched, we've not found anything. Will they just carry on now?
No, I think there are two questions here. One is how long is the operation in Sutton Coldfield going to take, and that's really how long is a piece of string. It will take as long as it takes to search and for the officers to be happy that they've searched everywhere and you know, there's no point in searching any further. That will be a number of days, I guess. You know, we're into the second day now. It could be 3, 4, 5 days, I don't know. In terms of the investigation, I would be surprised if nothing is found at this search. Then I would be surprised if this investigation is continued any further. I think, you know, we're probably looking here at something that's a one-off.
This is like a last throw of the dice, then, for the Lamplugh family.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, that there's this information and this feeling that this is a good place to search. They'll do the search, complete it there. If they find something, of course, the investigation will be reopened and it will go down that road. If nothing is found in this search, I'm certainly, you know, I think it's hard to see where any further information would come from, which would mean that the investigation continues.
I mean, if something is found, obviously that would be closure for the family. It would also be an extremely tragic end, in a way, wouldn't it? Because finally we would know what happened to Susie Lamplugh, and that in itself is not good news. You know, talking about it sensitively.
No, of course.
But also, the other thing is, if something is found, there will be even more serious questions asked of that original investigation, because Susie's parents are now passed away, having never known and always wondered what happened to their daughter. So it's a very sort of sensitive time, isn't it, for the family and for the police today?
Oh. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know, people talk about cold cases as being done in slow time compared to live investigations. There are always time pressures, even with cold cases, and one of those time pressures is, you know, the people to whom this crime means the most. You want them still to be around when you resolve it, and sadly, in this case, that hasn't happened. So that would be a great shame. And you know, she still has siblings and other wider family, but her parents have passed on and will never know exactly what happened to their daughter, and that's always something to be regretted. Okay.
Colin Sutton, former Senior Investigating Officer in the Metropolitan Police, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
Thank you. It's 6:42 now. Good morning, Britain. It's time now for competition, and your chance to win £50,000 and a brand new Audi. Andy has the details.
Happy Halloween and a very good morning to... All right, I'm just about to say, I've got a prize which has got no tricks but just treats. A lot of treats in store because you'll win £50,000 in cold hard cash. Yes, I know, and with that money you won't have to buy a new car because we're throwing in one of those. Get lost. How do you fancy driving off in your very own Audi Q2? Well, this could be yours. It's a balance between a hatchback and an SUV. You'll have a choice of metallic colours, 6 speeds, there's a camera at the back to help you easily reverse, and a stylish leather interior. For your chance to win the car and the cash, text WIN to 65557. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or go to itv.com/win. Entries cost £2. You can call 09068 78 557. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and phone number to BK44, PO Box 7558, Derby, DE1 0NQ. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 2 p.m. on Friday the 23rd of November. It's an awesome prize and it could all be yours. Come on, Piers, give us a smile.
The world's gone nuts.
The world's gone nuts. Who says that? Let's see.
The world's gone nuts.
Oh, you thought he'd gone. There he is.
Why are we doing that? What have I missed?
Do you know Piers Morgan?
No, what? Who is he? What is he?
He's on holiday.
No, he's great.
Piers,
Well, he's working. It's Halloween, I think.
Jeffrey Archer is
Who will
here.
notice?
Jeffrey Archer is here, our next guest, a former politician turned best-selling author. He's sold more than 300 million books worldwide.
Yes, indeed. Jeffrey Archer is the only author to have a #1 bestseller in fiction, non-fiction and short stories. And now he's releasing his first standalone novel in nearly a decade.
Heads you win. One man, two lives, a family divided. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
People describing it as the best since Cain and Abel.
Yes,
Do you consider Cain and Abel your best, by the way?
It's 40 years ago. People stopped me in the street and discussed things in Cain and Abel. I can't even remember them. And I feel, yes, I did write it. Yes, I did.
Yeah. But do you consider, when you look back at all the novels that you've written, I mean, I would say that if you asked anybody who's read you, that would be the one that...
I think this may be better. I'm crossing my fingers. It's taken 3 years and I've put everything into it, so... Yeah.
And the first standalone book in quite some time. Your last 5 books, is it, were all sort of part of
the Clifton Chronicles came before. But I got the idea halfway through the Clifton Chronicles and knew I couldn't do anything about it because I was enjoying writing the Clifton Chronicles. And I got the idea reading Colin Powell's memoirs.
Right.
Because I discovered his
This is
mother,
former
Maud,
Secretary of State
former Secretary of State
in the United States.
His mother, Maud, was a seamstress in Jamaica, and she made the decision whether to go to America or whether to go to Britain. And I sat down and thought about that. Of course he went to the United States. What would have happened if he'd been born in Hackney and not born in Harlem? Would he, 60 years ago,
have had the same
become
opportunities?
a lieutenant at Sandhurst? Would he have become a field marshal? Would he have followed Alec Douglas Hume and Peter Carrington as Foreign Secretary? I don't think so.
It's a big story that immigrants. I mean, we always think. My friends always think about this. My father's from Pakistan. If he hadn't left Pakistan, mother hadn't left Kenya, where would I have been?
But if he'd gone to America, would he have had different opportunities? Do you think? And would you now?
Who knows?
Who knows? I mean, you just don't.
It was your father who made it possible.
Absolutely.
If Colin Powell had come here, he wouldn't have found it possible. But you're the total proof. 40 years later, do you think you'd have been on this programme 40 years ago? No, you wouldn't. Yeah. And that's an achievement and shows the great side of immigration.
So your story, based on that, set in Russia, Leningrad, about a young boy whose father works for the KGB and is assassinated.
Well, I made the decision I couldn't steal the Colin Powell story, so I put my boy in St. Petersburg, Leningrad as it was then, and his father is killed by the KGB because he's a trade union leader and they don't like him. And he has to escape. His very tough mother, Elena, decides he has to escape. They go down to the docks and they come across 2 crates. One is going to the United States. One is going to Britain. And she says, which one? And they toss a coin. Heads you win.
Right.
That sounds like a very Jeffrey Archer novel.
Yes,
to me.
And I think without giving too much away, the story then, the structure of the story, I think is quite interesting because don't you then, you sort of write both sides of the story.
Like a sliding door.
Don't give too much away.
I don't give too much away. The chapter sort of rotates.
Then the decision was which country to go to. And that was the first big idea. We'll send them to both.
Right.
Alexander can become Sasha and can become Alex, and you'll follow both lives and see how different they are because one went to America and one went to Britain.
What do you make of Trump's America at the moment?
I think I'm as appalled as most people. I think very frightening. What I have no doubt about is that we'll find out the truth in the midterm elections next week, because that will tell us what the American people think, not what sophisticated Londoners like you think, who are always out of touch.
Yeah.
And I'm out of touch
So
as well.
true. We're
But they will. You're completely. You're in the Westminster bubble, you three. You're a waste of time.
I've only been here 2 days. Give me a break.
Elite got it all wrong.
Yes,
they got it
totally.
wrong on Brexit.
So even your cameramen are laughing at
Exactly. If only we'd listened to them. And the West Coast and East Coast of America were absolutely convinced that President Trump didn't have a chance. I remember the night of the Brexit referendum, the papers, the early editions came out saying Remain had won and it was time now to fix the divide.
And I voted Remain and was convinced we'd win, but my attitude is simple. We lost. We live in a democracy. Get on with it. I don't want a second referendum.
Yeah, but,
get on with it.
Geoffrey, get on with what?
Brexit.
Yeah.
And coming out.
What does Brexit look like?
We don't know until the terms come back.
Even the Prime Minister doesn't know what it looks like.
Well, how can she? We're at the final
I read somewhere
negotiations.
that you'd been
you
told
three
by...
are being... Oh, you're at it again.
I read somewhere that someone had told you on the inside that the deal's already been done.
Oh, yes, I think there's no doubt that 9/10 is already, frankly, printed up and in black and white. The Irish border's a problem. They'll sort that out. Don't kid yourselves. They'll sort that out. The budget, as you saw, was geared to make those dissident Conservative MPs and several Labour MPs who want a strong relationship with Europe to come in and vote. It's all being very carefully timed. It could still fall apart. But my bet is they'll bring back a deal. My bet is the Parliament will vote for it.
And who would be your preferred leader once we have
Theresa May, thank you very much indeed. I will tell you over the years, with some degree of experience, young man, in this particular subject, that you cannot tell who's going to be the next leader of any party until 2 weeks before. You wouldn't have got Margaret Thatcher until 2 weeks before. You wouldn't have got John Major until 2 weeks before.
You
wouldn't have got...
Corbyn,
No, you wouldn't have... Exactly. So
did you have aspirations for leadership?
Don't ask me until 2 weeks. I'll come back on the show 2 weeks before and answer your question.
Did you ever want to be leader?
Yes, of course. Everybody who goes in the House of Commons. Don't kid yourself. You've got 600 people in there who think they should be Prime Minister.
Yesterday we tried to anoint the Chancellor as Prime Minister.
No, I saw that. Do you know, he's the one man who, when he came on and said it, I actually believe him. I don't think he's ever wanted to be Prime Minister. He always wanted to be Chancellor. I've known him all my political life, all his political life. And he always, from the day I met him, he wanted to be Chancellor of the Exchequer. So, funnily enough, did Margaret Thatcher. If you'd asked her when the leadership battle came up, she said, no, I'm hoping I'll be Chancellor. That's the job she wanted.
Is that because that's the real power? When you're in charge of the purse strings and the budget, you're the person wielding the power?
John Major famously said that the toughest job he ever had was Financial Secretary.
Yeah.
The second toughest job he was not quite as tough, was Chancellor, and Prime Minister was easier than either of them. It's the toughest job in government. There's no doubt about that.
Well, it's good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. So you would put money on Theresa May staying as Conservative leader and Prime Minister?
Get on with it. So you lot you're trying to fill in hours on television and I'll tell you the cameramen know far more than you do.
Maybe you can have a word with David Davis and Boris Johnson and all the people who are agitating behind the scenes. It's not actually just the
people
media,
who
it's the
stab
people
you in the back never make it.
Can I just
It'll be someone you least serve.
Can I say, before you go, good luck with the book. I need to tell you something. This is a true story. I've just come back from India. Now, when you go to India, you come to the traffic lights, you wind down the windows, the kids will try and sell you stuff.
Yeah.
So they will sell you either tea towels
at half
or
price.
fruit or even
the latest
Geoffrey Archer book.
Yeah.
Honestly, fruit, tea towels, Geoffrey Archer book. That's what I've heard when I was in India.
I wound the window down when I was in Mumbai. No, don't laugh, it's true. I wound the window down and this little boy said,
priceless.
Would you like the latest Geoffrey Archer? And I said, I am the latest Geoffrey Archer.
And he went, very funny, sir, very funny. Oh,
that's absolutely brilliant.
I'm not paid to be a comedian like you.
But I don't know whether they're real. I looked at one quickly and I think they might
What they
be
do is
copies
they
because
buy it at London Airport.
Right.
They'll buy Hedge You Win at London Airport. They fly it over to Mumbai. In 3 days, it's on the street at half price.
Yeah.
So where's the profit?
Yeah.
Oh, they're not spending a lot of money producing what they're selling me through the
in
web.
India,
she'll never be an entrepreneur, that one.
OK, they're just photocopying it.
Yes.
Well, in India, copyright means the right to copy, so as long as you know that.
We speak with some experience, clearly.
I'll give you a card later.
Would you like the latest latest Jeffrey Archer. I am the latest Jeffrey Archer. That's brilliant.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jeffrey Archer. Still to come on Good Morning Britain. Richard's here, and things have taken a spooky turn for you in the studio this week, Richard.
I think it's actually a live link to my home where I'm watching this in my regulation house code Adel. Yes, indeed. Cruella de Vil. Happy Halloween, everybody. We've got a spooky announcement regarding 101 Dalmatians. At least I sincerely hope that's the reason I'm dressed as this morning. All still to come on Good Morning Britain.
Cruella de Vil, Cruella de Vil. If she doesn't scare you, no evil thing will.
Oh,
to
Roger.
see her is
You do look pretty scary, to be fair. All dressed up for Halloween.
I
Going
would
out.
hope so, yes. I did get the date right, didn't I?
Have you had any treats yet? Dressed as
Not
that?
yet dressed as that, but I think there could be a few coming my way later. Yes, happy Halloween. I am, of course, the Disney villain Cruella de Vil, and so for a valid reason, because we'll have an exclusive Disney announcement for you in the next hour with one Ben Bailey Smith, the rapper. I know, odd combo. I've been in makeup since 4:30 a.m. this morning. These aren't my real cheeks, of course. I know, if you're leaning closely,
I could cut myself on those cheekbones, yeah. What are they made of? Silicon?
I believe it is some form of silicon, yes, although when they came out, I thought they were for something else. If I'm
Chicken
really
fillets.
honest, chicken fillets. Thank you, Susanna, for saving me, yes. Not like you to ever throw me under the bus. There you have it.
It's my
What
mission.
a worry, I know, right? You've obviously seen this over the last few days if you've been on your socials. P. Diddy getting the fright of his life. It does feel like Halloween's been going on forever across the pond and here now, of course. This is on Ellen.
Oh, that's horrible.
It's
So
horrendous.
good. I loved his response. It's
Yeah.
so funny. I love
Just
the little
shake it on down.
I love the little.
Obviously, she's well known for scaring her guests. That's possibly the best reaction we've seen in a while. The crew over the last couple of years have had form in frightening my good self as well. And what do you know? They put a compile together, yeah.
I was a bit worried about what might be.
I'm so butch.
No!
Anyway, some great celeb outfits over the weekend. You will have noticed as well, again, if you've been on the socials, Rita Ora went as rapper Post Malone. She said it took 7 people to make her look like him. And she looks very similar as well. Perry from Little Mix went as Ursula.
Hasn't she
One for you,
just drawn on her face?
Just sketched on her face with a Bic. The Little Mermaid. Like a
looks
budget on
great.
this show. Harry Styles went as a young Elton John, and he certainly pulled it off.
Is that Halloween?
I think anything goes for Halloween. We had this chat in the...
He's just put some pink sunglasses on, hasn't he?
Yeah, I know. I always think that the fancy dress, the thing about fancy dresses, you should always obviously look, attractive. Clearly.
Obviously.
The most important thing is, rather than pulling on Halloween, so to speak, is actually you've got to be able to get a cab home. So face paint, any kind of body makeup. Honestly, a friend of mine once had full body makeup on. He was trying to get a cab. I mean, if he was Moses, he couldn't have parted the traffic. Do you know what I mean? Couldn't get anywhere. So, yeah, that's my top tip.
Now, let's move on. There's been a bit of backlash over the Bake Off winner.
Are you seriously going to do the
I know, I really don't want to talk about the Bake Off. Oh, that's time on this, is it?
No, it's not. We've got 2 minutes,
We've got
Richard.
loads to
Okay,
get through.
right, okay. We're talking about the Bake Off.
Yeah, this is
Howdy
a treat
do.
for you.
Yeah,
or
it's a spoiler alert. So please do not fill my Twitter feed with abuse after this, because it's not for me to spoil it this morning. I'm stringing it out so we can get to the weather and not reveal who actually won.
Put it
Cover
on
your
mute.
ears.
Put it on
Cover
mute.
your ears.
It's
on the strap. We've already given it away.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Oh, it was in the paper review as well. I'm never across this show. It probably pays to. Rahul won.
Well done.
There you go, you've got it now, beating Ruby and Kim Joy, of course, despite being the most awarded star maker throughout the series. He did have a bit of a rough final, actually, to be fair. It was 32 degrees, his bowl exploded. It had it all going on last night. But a worthy winner, I would argue, despite some negative comments on Twitter that being allowed that extra 15 minutes wasn't quite fair game for everyone else. But I think if there's glass in the food,
Is that what happened?
There's a duty of care to kick in, right?
Yeah, it exploded, and they had to clean it up and give them extra minutes as a consequence.
Right. OK, that's fair enough. You don't want to kill anyone, do you, really, I suppose?
No, that wouldn't be a good look.
Not a good end to it.
No, it wouldn't.
Although for Halloween, you look fabulous.
Ben Bailey-Smith coming up to explain all about this 101 Dalmatian.
To justify Richard's outfit today,
Yes,
Ben Bailey-Smith will be with us later.
Meanwhile, Lara has also dressed up, and she's at Chessington World of Adventures this morning.
Love your home, whatever the weather. With Good Morning Britain National Weather, sponsored by Checkatrade.com.
Checkatrade, Checkatrade.com.
God, I really don't like this. I don't know who thought this would be a really good idea. I literally don't remember a word I said in the last weather forecast. Oh, they're going. That's good. I was going to jump at them and make them jump, but that didn't happen. Good morning. Yes, we are here. They're open extra long for the Halloween season at the moment. Up and down the country, many people will be celebrating or marking Halloween today. And if you were heading out trick-or-treating, will the weather be a trick or a treat? Well, a bit of both. It will be devilishly dry through eastern areas, but it will be wickedly wet out towards the west with some revolting rain. And this morning, again, it is another clear, cold start for particularly eastern areas, and temperatures overnight have dipped as low as -6 degrees. Now, as we head through the day today, we are set to see more cloud and rain through western areas. That brings with it some rain, some heavy showers. Here, a miserable day to come, but for eastern areas, more sunshine. But despite that, temperatures really are going to struggle to maybe 12 or 13 degrees at best. More frost to come later this week, and then, oh, I don't like it! For the weather where you are in detail, go to itv.com/weather.
Good morning, Britain. Could the case of missing estate agent Susie Lamplugh finally be solved as the search for her remains continues in the garden of a house connected with the prime suspect in her disappearance more than 30 years ago?
Crackdown on violence in our hospitals. The government announces a zero-tolerance approach to protect NHS staff at risk of attacks and ensure swift punishment for offenders. But will it be enough? We're asking the Health Secretary in 10 minutes' time.
Do people hate vegans? After the editor of Waitrose Food magazine caused outrage by joking about killing them, why do they inspire such strong feelings? One vegan joins us to fight back this morning.
And from soldier to soap star, we meet the former Royal Marine who lost his leg fighting in Afghanistan, who's now joined the cast of Coronation Street.
Wednesday, 31st of October 2018, live from ITV Studios in London. This is Good Morning Britain with Susanna Reid and Adil Ray.
3 minutes past 7, our main news this morning. The brother of the missing estate agent Susie Lamplugh says he hopes her remains will be found today to end the 32-year mystery and give the family some closure finally.
Police are searching the garden of a house in Sutton Coldfield, which once belonged to the mother of a man named as the prime suspect in the case. Our chief correspondent, Richard Gaisford, is there. Richard, after more than 3 decades of police work, Susie's family hope the case is about to be solved.
Yes, it certainly could be solved today. The specialist police team's about to arrive back here to resume their work in the back garden under that blue tent that you see behind the fence there. It was clear they couldn't dig through the night. This is a suburban area. Clear too that they came here because they have some sort of new information. The big question, of course, is where that information came from and who gave it to them. The main suspect in the case, a man called John Canan's mother, used to live in this house many years ago. Now Mr. Canan has always denied any involvement in Susie Lamplugh's disappearance. And in today's Sun newspaper, a story suggesting that an official Met Police review found many years ago, actually, that the detectives who were originally leading this case had ignored him to a large extent and that there were many blunders in this case. Certainly there have been frustrations for the Lamplugh family. Very sadly, Susie's parents died without knowing what happened to their daughter. Today, though, as you say, there could be closure for her remaining relatives. Beneath the concrete being cut here may lie the answer to a grim mystery. And Susie Lamplugh's family want to give her a proper burial.
You don't want to get your hopes up too much. We've had so many of these ups and downs that it just, we need to have, it would be great to have some sort of closure.
The searches and appeals over 3 decades since the estate agent disappeared in West London in July 1986 have been extensive, but she was never found and was declared dead, presumed murdered, in 1994. This the man witnesses reported she was arguing with the last time she was seen, thought to be John Cannan, who became the case's prime suspect.
It kind of seems self-evident that he should have been treated as much more of a suspect and much more of a strong suspect way back at the time when it was happening.
Cannan's mother's house was first searched in 2003. Attention's now focused on what might be under the concrete of an old garage behind it. However chilling, it might provide the answers that Susie's loved ones have wanted for 32 years. Richard Gaisford, Good Morning Britain.
In other news this morning, 2 teenagers have been arrested after a 3-year-old boy was hit by a stolen van during a police chase in Lee in Greater Manchester. Leo Darrington is in a critical condition at the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. Juliet Dunlop's at the scene for us this morning. And Juliet, police have described this collision as a horrendous incident.
Yeah, clearly a very distressing incident, Charlotte. Leo Darrington, according to police, was simply out walking with his mum and his 9-year-old sister. They were near the junction to this pub on Tuesday morning when a stolen van suddenly mounted the pavement and struck the 3-year-old. Now, somehow his mum and his sister escaped unharmed, but the toddler was apparently thrown across the car park behind me here. Now, police had been chasing this stolen vehicle at the time when all of this happened. Officers, of course, immediately stopped and gave Leo emergency first aid at the scene, but the van drove off. It was later found abandoned. Following a public appeal for information last night, police announced that they had arrested 2 boys aged 15 and 16 in connection with this incident. Now, Leo Darrington, meanwhile, well, he remains in a critical condition in hospital with his family at his bedside, and this case has been referred to the independent police watchdog.
Juliet, thanks very much. The Health Secretary says the NHS is adopting a zero-tolerance approach to attacks against staff after figures showed 1 in 6 experienced violence from patients and their families in the last year. Holly Hudson has more.
From being spat at, kicked and punched to even being held hostage, nurse Shelley Pearce has faced violence dozens of times.
We must share our stories. We must not be afraid to speak up. Why should I be put more at risk just because I adorn a uniform?
Today, for the first time, the government is introducing measures to try and stamp out such assaults, including better training for staff to defuse violent situations and support for victims. It comes as growing numbers of NHS workers are now being attacked. Over 56,000 were physically assaulted last year, a rise of almost 10% on the year before.
Alcohol, drugs, these and a sort of rising tide of violent crime have meant that they've been sometimes in the front line, even though they're trying to protect people and save people's lives. There's a madness, a scandal here.
The government says the new strategy will protect NHS workers and patients and punish offenders more quickly. But there's worries doctors and nurses will remain at risk until the more widespread problem of staff shortages and funding cuts is solved. Holly Hudson, Good Morning Britain.
And we'll be talking to the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, about that in just a few minutes' time. Hundreds of protesters greeted President Trump as he visited Pittsburgh to pay tribute to the victims of the mass shooting at a synagogue. 11 people died in the attack. As Jessica Savage reports, it came as mourners attended the first funerals.
Huge crowds turned out to protest, many feeling the president shouldn't have come to this grieving community. Accompanied by First Lady Melania, Mr. Trump laid flowers and pebbles to remember the 11 people murdered at the weekend as they worshipped. The president has come under fire, seen as consistently slow to denounce white nationalists and neo-Nazis, many feeling his overt nationalism is encouraging a dangerous fringe. The president's visit coincided with the funerals of 3 of those who lost their lives at the weekend's mass shooting. But as this community mourns together, many here feel the president's rhetoric only serves to tear apart. Jessica Savage, Good Morning Britain.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have taken part in a Maori welcoming ceremony on the final day of their visit to New Zealand. They also named 2 young Kiwi chicks and carried out their final public walkabout. Nick Dixon is en route for us. Hello there, Nick. Dozens of engagements over 16 days in 4 countries. It's been quite a trip, hasn't it? How was their final stop?
Hi Charlotte, yeah, it's been quite an intense few weeks. I think they've earned a rest, and certainly one of the highlights of the trip taking place this morning, certainly the best welcome I would say that they've had over this last few weeks. A traditional Maori welcoming ceremony for them this morning. The Duke and the Duchess both wearing special kurawai feather cloaks specially made for them, and the Prince as well impressing a lot of people here by speaking in Maori when he made his speech, getting applause throughout and really making a good impression here.
Lele. Hula Vanaka. Whakalofa lahi atu. Ki orana tēnā koutou katoa.
So after lunch, it was on to the next engagement. I went with them to the Kiwi National Breeding Centre. They were very fortunate, actually, with just a few minutes before they arrived. One of the chicks hatched, so they got a really nice little surprise waiting for them and a good behind-the-scenes tour. Harry, in particular, really seemed to enjoy that engagement. The staff were certainly thrilled to see them both. And then it was on to their final walkabout of this tour. It was another huge crowd waiting for them, bigger, actually, I thought, than the crowd they had in Auckland. And again, it was a bit like a sort of One Direction concert with loads of screaming youngsters looking for selfies, for hugs and kisses, and they got a few of them as well. And then there was just one last engagement of the tour a couple of hours ago, the pair of them having a wander hand in hand through one of the forests here, looking at the century-old redwoods. And that is it. They're going back to the UK tomorrow with lots of fun memories.
Oh, they have, haven't they? Nick, thanks very much.
Something tells me Nick's rather enjoyed the trip
I know,
as well.
yeah, it's not bad, is it, when it comes to
Everything's rather nice.
your working
the weather's
environment.
great, and I went
Wistfully, Nick saying we'll be
I've had a
returning
great
with
time.
fond memories. Has it been a tough one? Tough gig out there?
If I said yes, you wouldn't really believe me.
Marty, this is the toughest time. What time is it there now for you?
It's nearly dinner time. Nearly relaxing time. It's about 12 minutes past 8. Oh, sorry, I meant work. I meant we've got a late assignment.
Listen, have a great one.
You deserve it, you deserve it. 12 minutes past 7, talking about dinner, still ahead on Good Morning Britain. Vegans, do you love them or do you loathe them? Whatever you think about them, their numbers are soaring. But after the editor of Waitrose food magazine, no less, made some rather controversial comments about the lifestyle choice, we are debating why some meat eaters hate vegans.
Is hate a bit of a strong... Is that a strong word? Are they?
Yes.
Strong, isn't it?
Well, tell us what you think.
By the fact that there has been such a strong reaction from some people.
If there's any vegans out there, we'd love to hear from you.
It's just a
Defend
food
your
choice.
position, you know.
Do you hate meat eaters? Are you a meat eater who hates vegans? Are you a vegan who hates other vegans? But whatever you think about vegans, get in touch. Via email, Twitter or Facebook. Adil? What do you think?
What do I think about... each to their own, I think. I don't understand... sort of...
You don't understand hate. What I mean? Doesn't everyone love each other?
No, I don't.
Make your own personal choice.
We'll talk about veganism later because I think there's I've yet to meet completely pure vegans because I spoke to somebody earlier and they said, oh, well, I eat a little bit of cheese or I eat...
Well, we've got Adrian Charles is coming in. He calls himself an almost vegan because he eats cheese. Now, for some vegans, that's just not vegan.
Yeah.
You are either vegan...
According to the technical
And then there's the whole thing that avocados and almonds aren't technically vegan. We'll explain that a bit later. I only learnt this recently.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Are they actually animal products?
They are. They've got arms and legs and everything. We'll explain why later. Right, let's get the news, travel and weather where you are.
See you in a moment.
Hello, I'm Leisha McNally with your headlines from Grenada. As you've been hearing on the national news, 2 teenagers have been arrested after a 3-year-old boy was left fighting for his life following a hit-and-run crash in Lee. Police say Leo Durrington is still critically ill in hospital. He was hit by a stolen van which was being chased by police on Wigan Road. It was later found abandoned. 2 boys, a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old, are being questioned. Firefighters in Merseyside have spent the night tackling 12 deliberately started fires, among a number of incidents of violence and vandalism now common with the night before Halloween. Mischief Night, as it's been named, also saw a woman injured when a brick was thrown through a bus window in Liverpool, and in Ormskirk, police were called to reports of people throwing fireworks. The mother of a teenager who disappeared from her home in Lancashire has written a book about her experiences. Charlene Downs was 14 when she was last seen in Blackpool. Now her mother Karen has written a memoir to mark the 15th anniversary of her disappearance. And a debate's being held in Parliament later on fracking, chaired by the Field MP Mark Menzies. It comes after work was temporarily suspended at the Preston New Road site in Lancashire on Monday because of earth tremors. The debate is due to take place this evening in Westminster Hall. Now it's fairly quiet on the travel, so let's take a look at the weather. Here's Kerry.
Brightening up your morning with Good Morning Britain local weather, sponsored by Soak.com.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Not quite as cold today, but unfortunately a little bit more unsettled. So we get a mixture of patchy cloud, sunny spells and a few showery outbreaks, tending to develop a little bit more, certainly over Cumbria, maybe Lancashire and the Isle of Man for later on. But for Halloween revellers later, south and east is drier and clearer. Have a good day if you can.
Kerry, thanks very much indeed. Well, time now to return you to Adele and Susanna in London. I have a final update for you just after 8 o'clock. I do hope you can join me then.
Still to come, he's starring in Doctor Who this weekend and has collaborated with Ricky Gervais. Rapper, actor and voiceover artist Ben Bailey Smith is here before 8 o'clock. Hugely multi-talented man. He'll be here later.
And a huge Crystal Palace fan.
Oh yeah, more important.
Plus, he conquered the people strictly. Now, former Royal Marine Cassidy Little is taking a starring role in Coronation Street as an inspirational mentor to young amputee Jack Webster. All that and more ahead. You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV.
Good morning, 7:21. Now, the NHS is adopting a zero-tolerance approach to attacks against staff after figures show they've reached a 5-year high.
In the last year, 1 in 6 members of the NHS have been physically attacked by patients, relatives or members of the public whilst trying to do their job. Today, the government will set out a series of measures and stiff punishment for those who abuse staff in our health service. The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, joins us now from Westminster. Matt, this is absolutely astonishing that people on the front line of our emergency services, those trying to make us all better, are now experiencing the highest level of violence towards NHS staff in 5 years, happening on your watch under this government. What on earth has gone wrong?
It's completely unacceptable. I mean, the idea that anybody would attack somebody who's working to protect them, to keep them healthy. Paramedics are often in the front line of this, but also nurses and doctors. I've seen it myself in A&Es, you know, late at night. It is completely unacceptable. So we're going to take a whole series of measures to tackle it, as you say. We're changing the law. That's just come into effect. So it will be an aggravating factor if you attack somebody who is works in the public service, works for you, trying to make you better. And also, we're putting in place a stronger link between the NHS and the police and the Crown Prosecution Service, because the presumption should be that these people are always prosecuted.
What do you put it down to? I mean, there are probably multiple factors, but I wonder whether you consider one of them being that it actually can be quite stressful using the NHS sometimes. You know, my family, we use it regularly, variety of different reasons. Every family does. If you go into A&E and your A&E department is not meeting its target and you're feeling desperate about something, can put you under an awful lot of pressure. The staff are under an enormous amount of pressure. You know, these can be flashpoints, can't they?
Well, there's more people going to A&E than ever before. There's been a sharp rise in the last few years. That's one of the reasons that there is more pressure on A&E, and I hope that the extra £20 billion for the NHS announced by the Chancellor on Monday, if that can help address this problem of violence against staff as well, then that is all to the good. But nevertheless, we've got to take action directly also against people who are perpetrating this sort of violence. There's been a zero tolerance approach in some parts of public services, for instance, the London Underground, over the last few years. And we want to learn from where it's worked and roll out this approach right across the NHS.
But isn't this as a result of the mistakes your government has made? There was something called NHS Protect that was perfectly in place to protect NHS staff, and that was changed back in November 2017 into a department that just looks after investigating fraud, which is equally important. But you guys neglected it for the last 2 years.
Well, we're certainly not neglecting it, and that organisation, of course, the name has changed, but the purpose of making sure that NHS staff are protected is an incredibly important one and remains, and in fact we're strengthening it with the measures that we're taking today. I also want the regulator, the CQC, to look more carefully at this issue and make sure that when they're rating hospitals, they know that they've checked that the hospital management have also put in place processes to protect staff and are doing all they can to protect staff. Because, you know, my view is whatever the reasons, and they are, as you say, they're complex, whatever the reasons, I'm going to do everything I can to stop the violence against NHS staff, because I find it completely unacceptable.
And absolutely, I mean, no excuse for it. But
No
you would
excuses
acknowledge that if people are in the most sensitive, vulnerable, difficult, frightening time, and they can't get an appointment with somebody, they can't be seen at A&E, they can't get access to mental health services, that's not a good environment, is it, for those people, those patients and staff sometimes to be interacting. And of course, you mentioned the 20 billion extra. Now that people have had time to crunch those figures, you know, we've got quite a critical reports of whether that 20 billion actually stands up. The Health Foundation think tank says that in real terms, there will be a reduction in funding for the NHS England of £1 billion or 12%, because spending on public health in England and training for doctors and nurses, which is not protected, is set to fall next year. Do you acknowledge that?
I don't accept that there's a £1 billion reduction for NHS England. There's a £20 billion increase that we announced. I have seen that report, and I don't recognise the description that it has, because there haven't been any reductions in this budget. On the contrary, we've put in an extra £20.5 billion. So the central point, though, that about the violence is that I'm reluctant to go down the route that you encouraged me to, because the blame sits with the people who are being violent. Now, in the NHS, of course, sometimes it's very complicated, because NHS staff not only deal with people in A&E who have no excuse, they also deal with people who may have severe mental illnesses, and so sometimes it is very complicated dealing with violence. But nevertheless, where it is from somebody who's come in through A&E and they're frustrated, even if they are frustrated with the system like you described, there is absolutely no excuse to be violent against the very people who are trying to treat you.
No, absolutely, and nobody's providing an excuse for it. All I'm describing and asking you to acknowledge is that there has been enormous pressure on the NHS, and pressure creates tension.
Well, I certainly acknowledge that there's pressure on the NHS and the demand going up has been very sharp, and this is why we responded this week with the extra £20 billion.
Now, I mean, there may be more pressure to come. In fact, if you speak to some NHS managers, they say there's almost certainly more pressure to come because now you're on record to say that despite what happens with Brexit, you think the NHS will be protected, this investment will be absolutely fine. But you speak to NHS managers and they are saying very clearly that it could be catastrophic. It will be catastrophic. So there's going to be even more pressure placed on staff and on patients in the NHS in years to come. How can you say, when no one has a clear idea what's happening with Brexit, how are you the one person to say, well, actually, doesn't matter what happens with Brexit, I know that everything's fine, despite the people that are working for you, NHS managers, are disagreeing with you?
Well, I'm not sure that I recognise that picture because I'm confident we're going to get a good Brexit deal. Now, in the event of no deal for Brexit, there are a series of things that we need to do to make sure, for instance, that we have the unhindered flow of medicines, and we're doing that. We're putting those actions in place. I appreciate that no deal Brexit would be more difficult, but I'm confident that we will get a good deal. And in any case, the biggest concern is in terms of the staff, the millions of staff in the NHS and the thousands who come from the EU. And we have said very clearly that not only will they be allowed to stay, but they're very welcome to stay. And in fact, there's been an increase in the number of EU staff in the NHS since the referendum. And I'm very pleased about that because that shows that that EU staff remain welcome. And that's an important message.
If there is no deal, and a lot of people fear that that is the most likely possibility at the moment, can you still guarantee £20 billion extra for the NHS?
Yes. So I don't think it's the most likely outcome by a long stretch. I'm confident we'll get a good deal. But nevertheless, it is responsible to plan for no deal, even if I don't want it, and I don't think it's the most likely option. The £20 billion allocated on Monday in the budget, it will be there whatever the outcome on Brexit. And the reason for that is clear. It's because we need to put more money into the NHS so that we can guarantee it for the long term, so that it's always there for you and for viewers and everybody's family and loved ones.
Is that something that you've agreed with the Chancellor? Because he has said that if there's a no deal, then he'd have to come up with another budget.
Well, that's all very well, but the £20 billion set out for the NHS is absolutely committed.
Yesterday on the programme, when we talked to the Chancellor, because he has a mug with Chancellor Philip Hammond on, we suggested that he might have an ambition to have a mug with Philip Hammond Prime Minister on. He acted as if we'd given him something toxic, actually, and didn't want it. We haven't made up a Matt Hancock Prime Minister mug.
No, don't do that.
But if you were to drink out of a Matt Hancock Prime Minister mug, would that be an ambition fulfilled?
No. No.
That means yes.
No means no. I'm 40 years old and I'm the health secretary, and I'm thoroughly enjoying doing that. But it's a massive job, and there's an awful lot to do. Not least making sure that we have a zero tolerance approach to violence on NHS staff.
Which absolutely is the right message you want to end on. But when we talked to Jeffrey Archer a little bit earlier, he said, don't believe any politician who says they don't have an ambition to be Prime Minister, apart from Philip Hammond. So when you went into politics, was it your mission to eventually, who wouldn't want to run the country if they're already a politician?
Oh, come on.
No, I mean, look, I take this attitude that politics is public service, just as working the NHS is.
No, fine, but if a group of your fellow MPs came to you in a Commons today, took you aside, said, listen, we've got this plan, we think we can prop you up as a candidate for the next leadership, would you be up for it? Are you going to say, no, I'm not interested at all, I'm not in politics for this?
No, and it's not going to happen anyway. And what more importantly, you know, it's about making sure that the things that you're responsible for, like the NHS, like social care, which I'm also responsible for, is there for people. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
OK. Matt Hancock, thank you very much for joining us on Good Morning Britain.
7:32. Those constant questions about whether you're going to be Prime Minister or not, or want to be, probably bad for the blood pressure, aren't they? Laura, as I call her.
Why are you calling?
I don't know why.
Why are you calling her Laura?
Why do I call her Laura? Look at her. She looks like a Laura. She's at Chessington World of Adventures in Surrey with the weather. Morning.
Love your home, whatever the weather. With Good Morning Britain National Weather, sponsored by Checkatrade.com.
Checkatrade.com.
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Oh, I'm just trying out for one of the attractions here at Chessington. I think they might have me. Good morning from Laura, whatever you want to call me, I don't mind. Halloween, of course, today. Now, in the UK, it's become more popular. We spend about £450 million on decorations and all of the treats and the likes. In America, they spend $6 billion. That is crazy, isn't it? Well, if you are one of the people who will be heading out to enjoy Halloween tonight, I can tell you it'll be more of a trick than a treat for some of us. It'll be devilishly dry in the east, but boy, will it be cold. And out towards the west, we're going to have some revolting rain, so there could be some pretty soggy witches later on. But wherever you are this morning, it is another cold start to the day. Temperatures have tumbled to or below freezing for many of us. The best of any sunshine today will be across eastern areas, where after a cold start, temperatures climb to maybe 12, but another wet day out towards the west. For the weather where you are in detail, go to itv.com/weather.
It is 7:34. Let's take a look at the headlines now. And the brother of the missing estate agent, Susie Lamplugh, says he hopes her remains will be found today to end the 32-year mystery and give the family some closure. Police are searching the garden of a house in Sutton Coldfield, which once belonged to the mother of a man named as the prime suspect in the case. 2 teenagers have been arrested after a 3-year-old boy was hit by a stolen van during a police chase in Lee in Greater Manchester. Leo Darrington is in a critical condition at the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. Now, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have taken part in a Maori welcoming ceremony on their final day of their visit to New Zealand. They also named 2 young Kiwi chicks and carried out the final public walkabout of their 16-day tour.
Lots more still to come. You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV.
It's been 15 years since Corrie psycho killer Richard Hillman met a watery end in Weatherfield. Brian Capron's chilling portrayal of the smirking serial killer won him Villain of the Year and many other soap awards. Find out why he is now more musical than murderer in a classic tale of kindness. Tomorrow on Good Morning Britain.
Competition time now. Your chance to win £50,000 and a brand new Audi. Andy has the details.
Good morning from sunny Jersey, where I've got a 2-part prize worth over 75 grand. It all starts with £50,000 in cold hard cash. Just think what you do with that money. What you won't need to do is buy a car. As well as the money, we're going to give you one of these. It's a brand new Audi Q2. Just imagine having that car parked on your drive. Oh, it's like the French Riviera here, which is interesting because Jersey is actually closer to France than it is to Great Britain. Anyway, back to the prize. It's worth over £75,000, 50 grand in cash and that £25,000 car. For your chance to win, text WIN to 65557. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or go to itv.com/win. Entries cost £2. You can call 09068 78 557. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and phone number to BK44, PO Box 7558, Derby, DE1 0NQ. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 2 p.m. on Friday the 23rd of November. I could get used to this 5-star treatment. Your coffee, Mr. Peter. Thank you very much. And so could you. £50,000 and a brand new car. Good luck.
Around there, actually. St Mary's.
Good luck, good luck.
It's a lovely community.
Adrian Charles, it's lovely to have you back in the studio. It's like we are live on air.
I think you'd know about these things, wouldn't you?
Yes, I've been out of practice, actually, just like this.
It's lovely to see you. We're asking the question this morning, why do people hate vegans?
Yes.
What have vegans ever done to hurt us.
It's gone from a diet fad to a mainstream lifestyle choice, reportedly worth over £500 million. But many people are still very much anti-vegan.
And the reason that Adrian is in is because he's becoming a vegan and therefore, in some ways, a sort of hate figure.
Yeah. I've been a hate figure for a while now.
Alongside him, Niall Boylan, who is very irritated by vegans and probably has something in common with the editor of Waitrose Food magazine, who controversially criticised vegans and then went perhaps a little too far, joking about killing them and exposing their hypocrisy. Here's Kira Durkin with the rise and fall of plant-based eating.
Love it or hate it, 3.5 million people in the UK are now choosing to go vegan. With 68 million hashtag posts on Instagram, more and more celebrities making the lifestyle choice, and Vegan Week on Bake Off, it's never been so popular. Vegan milk, cheese, bacon, ice cream and mayonnaise are increasingly available in supermarkets. The global meat substitutes market is expected to be worth £4 billion by the end of 2020. But why does veganism seem to stir so much anger? The editor of Waitrose Food magazine, William Sitwell, caused outrage when he joked about killing vegans after a freelance writer pitched an idea about plant-based recipes. In an email, he said, "How about a series on killing vegans one by one? Expose their hypocrisy, force-feed them meat, make them eat steak and drink red wine." He later apologised to anyone who was offended or upset. And in August, a YouTuber sparked fury in Amsterdam after eating a slab of veal heart in front of a vegan food festival to show what humans eat in nature and how unnatural and unhealthy veganism is. But with new research suggesting a vegan diet may help the management of diabetes as well as having other health benefits, it seems the haters may have to eat their words.
Yes, so there you go. So, Adrian Charles, you're becoming vegan. What does that mean? Aren't we all sort of becoming something in our food?
No, well, I mean, I'm sort of more or less a vegan. I'm not the kind of vegan who accidentally eat a cheese and onion crisp and start putting their fingers down their throat.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I was...
You'd eat the crisps and enjoy them.
Well, no, I'll probably, I'll probably eat cheese and onion crisps.
Well, that's the flavouring anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But no,
as long as they're not cooked in animal fat, of course.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not necessarily. They're not cooked animal fat, are they?
As long as they're not cooked in animal fat, you can eat them. Just to say, Niall Boylan, alongside you, described as one of Ireland's most controversial broadcasters.
It's a bit of a statement, isn't it?
Isn't
in
it?
fairness,
What's your controversial view about vegans?
Well,
like
I mean,
Adrian?
I think this poor guy yesterday who wrote the letter, he wrote this personal email back to somebody. It was a bit of dark humour. I think she went a bit over the top.
This is the Waitrose Food
editor.
editor.
She was looking for a reaction and she got a reaction, right? I don't think he genuinely meant he was going to start chopping people up. I mean, that would be a bit sinister. Mind you, it is Halloween, so it wouldn't matter too much. But I think the backlash that he's getting is completely at hand. But I mean, they are irritating.
He did say, when asked, this freelance journalist, Lean, said, "I'd like to propose a series of features on plant-based recipes." He replied, "How about a series on killing vegans one by one?"
I know, but if you read the whole thing as a piece, it's got a dark humour. I mean, the guy has obviously got a reasonable sense of humour. Probably not the same sense of humour I would have. I wouldn't reply like that.
Why do vegans provoke
irritating.
Such strong reactions?
They're just annoying people. I
Well,
mean,
not all of us. Come on, I mean...
no, you seem like a nice guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think you should go and have a good steak today and enjoy yourself. But either way, I spoke recently to one of my staff, right? And she said to me that we're down the car park having a cigarette. And she said, "By the way, I just want to announce I'm a vegan." And I said, "OK, what's that about?" And I kind of thought it was funny, So she said, one of my friends is a vegan, so I just thought it was a good thing to tell people I was a vegan. She lasted a week and a half. I mean, it's absolute and utter nonsense. It's become a trend.
But why does it to irritate you? Why let it irritate you? What's it got to do with you?
But there's nothing to do with me. But you can't invite them out. You can't go anywhere with them. Or they're moaning at the waiter. Does that have gluten in it? And these are because they know. But wait, I tell you. But the vegans normally there's a trend. OK, vegans normally then move on to gluten as well. OK, because they like to get into all the fads.
What evidence have you got that vegans will then move on to gluten?
They do. Well, the average vegan starts at 16 years of age, usually because a mate is doing it. 60% of them back out after. No, it's true. Well, it's actually a fact.
But do you know any vegans?
I know loads of them. They're strange people. 60% of them.
Are you friends with vegans?
Well, that's
some of his best friends are vegans. You can just tell.
I'm not a vegan, but 60% of them drop out of this diet after about 3 months. It's not even a diet. A diet sets a target. Vegans want to be vegans for life. And there was a great book written about the myths for vegans by a woman who was 20 years a vegan, and she talks about how it destroyed her life. I mean, it's quite serious. I mean,
it saves the lives of a lot of
proteins,
animals, doesn't it, Adrian?
Well, from my point of view, I was making a documentary about religion, actually. I was in Istanbul for Eid. I've been a fanatical meat eater all my life. Loved cooking it, loved eating it, friends with butchers and all the rest of it, which I still am. And I had to take this lamb to be slaughtered. And I was with this lamb, and I saw the look in its eyes as it was joining the queue to be slaughtered. And then I saw the moment it died. And it was just seeing the moment it died then, I thought, well, hang on. I had to then go and eat it an hour later. And then I just suddenly thought, well, actually, I don't think any animal has got to die to feed me.
So you decided to save the planet?
No, I didn't know. I'm not saving the planet, and I agree. If vegans start going, hey, I'm saving the planet and being all virtuous, then who likes hearing to that? Nobody.
Adrian,
Nobody likes anybody sanctimonious.
Look, I'm vegetarian, but I eat fish, so I'm not
Yeah.
vegetarian,
Okay.
pescatarian,
Yeah.
whatever that word means. But it's the food chain. You know, animals go out and eat other animals.
Yeah.
You're having an emotional reaction.
But we can't base our behavioural, how we behave, on the behaviour of animals. Dogs go around sniffing each other's bottoms. I mean, I don't know what goes on around where you live, but you know,
how far do you want to take that?
So, you know,
how far do you want to take that?
We're more highly evolved. We're more highly evolved than animals, so which is why we shouldn't have to kill and eat them.
But hang on. How far is he going to take that?
The ethical viewpoint about the welfare and care about animals is a strong one, isn't it? And if people care about animals...
Now, you might think
I understand his story.
But intensive factory farming is not a nice experience for animals, whether you think that you should be allowed to eat them or not.
Do you know that when the strawberry fields in the world leaving cherries to rot so they can what they call price fixing, and they do the same with oranges in places like Florida as well.
Nobody feels sorry for the cherries.
No, absolutely, but it causes more problems to the environment than it does does more.
No, but we're talking about sentient beings.
But these vegans are all about the environment. They want to save the planet.
Hang on,
all this
Adrian hasn't said anything about the environment.
But does he get out of his car? Does he get out? Do you get out of your car on a good day, a nice sunny day, and look at the front of your car and see all these little insects and start crying? No, you don't.
I do actually.
Yeah, of course.
I do.
He speaks to his driver.
I mean, where do you draw the line? I mean, where do you draw the line? Look, when man started and we stepped out of the caves, we of course obviously ate meat. We have carnivorous teeth. We're not herbivores. We're not carnivores. We're omnivores. Our guts are designed for both meat and vegetables. All right.
Okay. Look, there's all sorts. I've heard all the arguments.
Yeah.
We have done this. For millennia, we've eaten meat. For all sorts of things happened over thousands of years that we wouldn't advocate anymore.
Each other.
What, slaughtering each other?
Yeah.
The subjugation of women. Don't be
comparing with women's rights.
But that's happened. But that happened for thousands of years. Doesn't mean we should still.
Is it getting easier for you to be vegan? Because I read only recently that avocados and almonds aren't strictly vegan because they transport bees over to where the avocados
I think,
are grown.
You've got to draw, and take them out their
as you
natural
say,
you've got to draw the line somewhere. You can't be, you can't be silly about it. There is an environmental.
What about a clam or an oyster? They don't have central nervous systems. Would you eat one of them?
Do you eat shellfish?
No, but I never really liked shellfish, so that's a bit of a that's a bit of a. Can I just ask you? My point is this: you said the hypocrisy of vegans. I accept that.
I know what you're talking about. I was at a barbecue. I saw the pig on the roast.
It's not seeing the pig on the roast. If you saw an animal die, right? If you saw the animal die, if I slaughtered beef in front of you, could you then eat a steak? Because that's the hypocrisy I can't
I wouldn't
get.
stand in front of you slaughtering an animal.
But I've got a friend who's a judge, right? He happens to be a judge. He said, I'll go out, I'll shoot things and take them home and eat them. Well, in a way, I think, well, that's fine. Look, it's not my bag, but just do it.
Yeah.
My point is, there's no hypocrisy there. He's killing it and then eating it.
Yeah.
But the vast amount of people who eat a steak or eat a sausage could no more be in the same room and watch as a pig was slaughtered or a cow was slaughtered. It just wouldn't. It just wouldn't
have stay in life. Human beings.
It's a very pleasant experience.
No, but that's kind of hypocrisy.
But look at the health problems that you're going to have. I mean, lack of amino acids, and I know the vegans will deny this. Lack of amino acids, proteins, basic proteins, not milk proteins.
Look, I'll give you a blood sample. My aminos are in
B12.
I'm afraid, unfortunately, we have to leave the debate there.
Okay.
You guys can go for some lunch or something together.
I've made some vegan sausages, and he's going to come back to my place to eat them.
Adrian, thank you very much indeed. Just Adrian, you also did a documentary. Lots of people talking about drinking.
Yeah.
How's that? Have you changed your habits there?
Yeah. I'm just
drinking more.
No. I need a drink this morning. Actually, just drinking less. Just sort of moderating, just working out which drinks I really enjoy and which drinks I'm drinking just for the sake of drinking. So
I've sort of.
What are you going to have left? Tea and biscuits.
Look, I'm going to have a couple of pints and a vegetarian sausage. At my age, that's ample.
That's all the pleasure you need.
Tucked up in bed at 10 o'clock.
Good for you.
Niall and Adrian, thanks for joining
Great to see
us. The vegan debate continues. If you want to tweet us about it, do feel free. Still to come on Good Morning Britain, Richard will be revealing just why he's been channeling his inner Cruella de Vil this morning.
She's no
Possibly
vegan.
the only programme on national television that could go from an item on vegans to Disney's favourite for yes, Cruella de Vil for a very good reason with Ben Bailey-Smith. Tell me you've got an announcement to make 101 Dalmatians, otherwise I'm going to look a little absurd, Halloween or not.
No, we are going to be talking about 101 Dalmatian Street, so
thank you very much.
You're dressed appropriately, don't worry.
Not for the first time. Quite used to this, guy. We'll see you after the break.
Here's your problem. I'm not as nice as those other officers. Bring them in. All of them.
New detective drama, Dark Heart, starts tonight and tomorrow at 9 on ITV.
Showbuzz, sponsored by Andrea Bocelli's album C and HMV.
He's a comedian, he's an actor, he's a rapper, he's an author, and he's a voiceover artist. In fact, there's not much our next guest can't do.
Well, to be fair, he's not as versatile as me.
He hasn't dressed up, has he?
No.
Ben Bailey-Smith, also known as Doc Brown.
Yep, he's in this weekend's episode of Doctor Who, but that's not the only classic he's starring in.
Indeed, because you are the reason that Richard has dressed as Cruella de Vil
Yes.
today. And I have to say...
The main reason.
He's enjoyed every single minute.
It's not coming off.
Yeah, no, I could tell.
But it might do for the prize.
So here's the big reveal.
Well, I mean, it's really exciting. It's a new series coming out on Disney Channel. It's called 101 Dalmatian Street, and it's kind of a reworking of the obviously the much-loved classic 101 Dalmatians. And you know, it's a complete sort of reimagining of it. Really, we've got 101 more Dalmatians. The mother of whom is kind of descended from Purdy and Perdita, for those who remember the original. But that's kind of the only connection. And also they're in London, which is a beautiful thing, in Camden Town of all places, which is special for me being a North Londoner. Yeah, it's really exciting. We got a special episode that's going to come out in December, but then the series is going to start in spring.
And you're voicing?
I'm voicing a couple of characters in there, not all the characters.
Is this the first time you've done voice sort of episode?
No. I've done lots of voice stuff in the past. I did a few shows for kids, a show called Strange Hill High. Did quite a few things for CBBC and CBBC.
And did you have to audition for it? Did you have to sort of do a voice and they sort of listen to it and go, yeah, we like that?
Yeah, I did an audition for a new thing yesterday. I love doing the voice stuff because you can literally, you go into a padded room and act like a maniac for like 20 minutes until someone goes,
we can hear a clip of your voice here.
You sure got some gnarly moves. How about you teach me some?
No chance, doll. Too busy, ain't I?
But I could really...
Oi, what's that?
Please, Sid. I want to learn from the best, and that's you. You gotta teach me to pull a 6-7-20, nail a boss double Kong, land an epic drop and roll. I want this so bad, I'll do anything.
Anything?
Anything.
Loving your passion, doll. You got yourself a deal.
Sid the squirrel.
Squirrel there. That sounds like loads of fun, though.
It is. It's a lot of fun because obviously you can really mess about, and in terms of range, you can do lots and lots of different things, and there's not really any rules apart from to make it as fun as possible because it's for young kids.
And Paloma Faith as well, am I right?
Yeah, Paloma Faith plays a poodle called Portia, and the other character I play, Spencer, is a sausage dog. He's kind of her sycophantic sidekick.
The poodle actually looks a little bit like Paloma.
Yeah, I agree.
Paloma is
that's what it'll be known as now.
Paloma, you know, with that sort of cartoonier look, with the fashions.
We actually worked together once before on a pilot for something that didn't go. Again, doing voices, and that was the first time I'd worked with her. And I remember her being so funny with so much range, just an absolute natural at voices. And I remember being really gutted. This was a few years ago that the show didn't go. So the fact that we're back together doing this is great for me.
You are also appearing in Doctor Who this Sunday.
I just heard you guys let me know that.